Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host, as always. And today we are joined by Nathan Schock, a dynamic force in the B2B business world. As the co founder and growth partner at FiveFour, Nathan is no stranger to the challenges of growing a business. With a keen focus on culture, business strategies, human resources, entrepreneurship, and customer experience, he's helped hundreds of leaders navigate the complex battles of the business realm. Proud alumnus of Wheaton College, Nathan majored in political science and has a rich history of public affairs and corporate social responsibility. Whether discussing the intricacies of entrepreneurship or sharing insights on customer experience, Nathan's expertise is both enlightening and invaluable. I've asked him here to join us today to share his story, offer some guidance, strategies, and his fresh perspectives on today's business challenges. So Nathan, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
Daryl, it is my pleasure to be here. I'm excited and really looking forward to the conversation. Big fan of the podcast and can't wait to get going.
Oh, well, that's nice to hear. Thank you so much. So then you probably know my next question. I'm going to ask before we get into all this business stuff, how did you even get involved in business? Do you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Is this like a generational career path?
Great question. So my grandfather was an entrepreneur, started probably a half dozen businesses, exited several, and a lot of them around the dairy business. Came up with a
Mm.
bunch of patents, all kinds of things. He was the classic businessman. Although his advice to me was, Nathan, you can be whatever you want as long as it ends in ologist. So I didn't quite follow his what he said. I followed what he did. But
Right.
he was a huge influence in my life and a big reason why I'm here today. My parents too were lifelong learners. My dad is a college professor, and I've just grown up watching my parents learn, and that's what's contributed a lot to what I do today.
Got it. Okay. So how did you get started then? Did you work in for your grandpa? And is that how you cut your teeth, so to speak?
So I did work in the family business some. Yep, there was a time where I did that, but it wasn't big enough. I had to go see the world and conquer the world and do
Mm.
my own thing. I spent some time in politics, as you noted in my background. So I was a poli sci major. I figured I better try this thing. And I quickly figured out why only young single people work in politics, because there's just not it's not much of a life. It wasn't what I wanted. And I also felt like I could make a bigger world impact through business.
Mm.
If anybody watches politics these days, they probably know what I'm talking about. But when I joined corporate America, there were some things that were great about it, right? I loved the opportunity. I loved the big horizons that they worked on. And I got to do some really cool things. But I always felt this tug back to entrepreneurship and doing my own thing. And so
Mm.
I always knew I'd be there. And in hindsight, maybe I wish I'd jumped even just a little bit sooner.
So, and what were some of your biggest challenges as an entrepreneur? Was it certain skill sets you felt you had to develop, or did you bite off more than you could chew too soon?
I think that's probably the definition of an entrepreneur is biting off too much, right? But there were a lot of things that I had to learn just on the fly. So I joined a startup, and then less than a year into the startup, the rest of the leadership team had exited or been asked to leave the business, and I was now the CEO.
Wow.
So it was really trial by fire. And I kept this list of what I call my six-figure mistakes.
What are
And
they? Yeah. What are some of these six-figure mistakes? Is
oh
that a very
gosh,
long list?
yeah, there's several. One was getting into, but primarily it was at times getting into business with the wrong people. So I would say if that if there was ever one consistent thread, it was that. And I eventually came across a mentor who's been really influential. And this guy said to me, Nathan, you can't do a bad deal with a good person. And
Hmm.
and and man, if I would be, I'd have a little more money in my pocket today if I'd learned that one sooner. But sometimes you got to learn it just through doing it. Because he also said, Nathan, I've made plenty of mistakes too, and I just chalk those up to tuition. Right, I'm just
Right.
paying tuition.
Yeah. I really like
Yeah.
that quote. You can't do a bad deal with a good person. That reminds me, when I was going to Japan, I was going to go live in Japan for a year. It ended up being 3 years. And I was doing martial arts at the time. I remember asking my instructor, taking this girl, we're going international. How do I keep her safe? And he gave me this book called The Gift of Fear. And the real lesson of that book, The Gift of Fear, is that our instincts have been with us for thousands of generations. And that a woman, if she's in a parking lot and some guy is walking too close or making her feel uncomfortable, there's nothing that she could say that could turn him into a mad killer serial rapist. He might think she's weird or okay, whatever, you wacko. But if she was like, get away from me, right? There, you wouldn't like snap, and normal nice guy would have, but you may give yourself much needed seconds to get away. So it's just this interesting concept. Just trust this one. Maybe you don't know. Like you didn't, if you knew they were going to rip you off, you wouldn't have done business with them. But I just love the foundation of you can't change the core of the person. That's what made me think of that gift of fear thing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally understand where you're going there. It's when you know that, you worry less about the T's and C's and more about the person that's sitting across from you, right? Because if you can be comfortable with them, then you don't have to worry quite so much about all that other legalese.
Yeah, that's such a well said. A contract is only as good as your ability to enforce it, and that heavily relies on the quality of your relationship with that person and your communication with them. You may have it in exactly you said, spelled out in Greek with 17 signatures, but if you're going to try to arm wrestle them into fulfilling on whatever they didn't fulfill on, you're going to spend a lot of money, and the lawyers are just going to keep the fight going because there's no incentive for them to end it. Typically, they want to just keep the fight rolling. And what do you get at the end? I've had things. I just think it's legal processes can be very toxic for the participants, and there's just so many fish in the sea. I just love that the contract's really there to recap what you guys said, but you have to take care of the person, right? Because things may change, and you need. I think it's a good idea to mention now that you should be focused on playing long-term games with long-term people.
You got it.
Yeah, that's really the way to go. I think that's fantastic. Okay, any other major challenges that you feel you had to face? Or what else is on this big list of yours? I don't want to say big, but
yeah, I guess if we move it more forward to FiveFour, when we started that business, it came from a belief that businesses don't grow, people grow, and then they grow the business. And the way that we thought we were going to do that at first was by building repeatable online training that we would provide to different businesses across different industry verticals. What we found is the people that need online training are also the ones that are the least likely to complete it.
This is yes.
Again, when you get back to paying tuition, we said, why didn't we know this beforehand? But it makes so much sense after we talked about it. And it was, as we dug in, it was like 14% of the people who actually pay for online training complete it. Not get something out of it, not change their business, not change their life, but just complete it. And so that was when we made the shift to say, rather than try to go a mile wide and an inch deep, we're going to do the reverse and find those businesses that have had some success, but see an opportunity for more because of some of the way they've structured things with their people and their processes and other details like you talked about in the intro at the top, that they just want more and they think they're capable of more and are looking for a growth partner.
Yeah, I kind of power laughed when you said that because I have a program with 340 people in it at the time of this recording right now, maybe more. And yeah, the premise is helping people improve their habits. But I know that if they had great habits, they wouldn't need the program. I was talking to my staff about that. Why? Because we try to do our best to really hold people accountable and follow up. And it was the whole, if they had good habits, they wouldn't need this program. And so that's the whole point. And I think some of it comes to that consistency, discipline and consistency. And so it's much easier to help something that's already moving do a little better than to try to get something from 0 to 6 figures. And there's just a lot of people, and I'm sorry if anyone feels I'm throwing them under the bus. There's a long line of people that want you to make them rich and famous while they sit on the couch and eat Cheetos. When you talk about like book publishing, there's a long line of people that want a publisher to discover them and help them write the world's most amazing book and market and sell it and show the world the star they are, right? This is such horse baloney. We all have potential. God helps those who help themselves. Okay. You don't need to be spiritual or religious to get the point of that. Okay. So targeting different people. So how does this translate? Like when you said only 14% complete the online training, when you look for businesses that are already going, is it the same training or how do the needs differ? What would you recommend to someone starting out and struggling versus someone that's maybe already up and going, running?
We don't primarily help the struggling startups. The stuff that we do is, and again, that's a lesson we had to learn the hard way, is it's not that they couldn't benefit from what we do. It's just that they have things in front of them that are much bigger challenges. That if they're focused on survival, they're not focused on developing their people. But what those struggling startups need to do is essentially, it's not a mystery. It's two things. You have to have product market fit. So your offering has to actually transform a business or a person, right? It has to make someone different than they are today. And then you have to be able to sell it, right? You have to be able to find a customer. So you have to be able to find a customer and change them demonstrably. And until you can do those things, you're really wasting your time and putting all this other stuff in place.
Yeah, I love that. That's really gets to the core. All of businesses is a group of people that help another group of people with a product or service. So you got to be able to, one, help people consistently, reliably, and two, you got to be able to find the people you can help. And there's a term, drive the growth. It's not passively sit and wait for the growth. You have to drive, like everybody here, however much prospecting you think you're doing, you need to do more. I'm just going to put that out there. More prospecting. You need to do more networking, more advertising, more strategic partnerships, more. You need to pray to that altar of more. And I know I've had people say, yeah, but I already got all the clients I have. I guarantee if I got you 20 people with their wallets out going, hey, let me give you a down payment on whatever, you would find a way to onboard them and create systems around that. And Elon Musk did $300 million pre-selling a car he had no team to build or factory to make. I'm going to say this again. He made $300 million pre-selling a car he had no team or factory to make. And then you got all these people, if I could just get someone to give me $1 million to develop my idea, get your customers to give you $1 million. Get $1 million worth of customers. 1,000 people paying $1,000, 200 people paying $5,000, 5,000 people paying $200, like whatever it is. Just going back to the whole help yourself. I just think that's good advice. I wanted to drive that home.
On more, Daryl, I could not agree with you more. If you look at the successful businesses that, especially, the ones that I interact with, I find they don't have a higher success rate. They just swing the bat more.
Yeah.
Like they do more things.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
And they're not worried about, oh my gosh, this one might not work. Should we? Yeah. They just go and figure out, okay, if it doesn't work, we ditch it. And if it gets close, we adapt it. It's like business strategy can get really complicated, but you could just reduce it all down to try stuff. If it doesn't work, stop it. If it does work, 10x it.
There's a lot of businesses, and there'll be a lot of people listening to this, that if all you did was double your leads, you could double your business. If all you did was double the leads that you're getting, you double. Now, some of you listening, you suck at what you do, and you need to learn how to do it better, because you're not even middle of the pack compared to your competitors. And that is always changing. Markets are unknown and unknowable, meaning that if I asked you how many people are in market to buy a car today, you could look at indicators, but ultimately we wouldn't know the real number, and it's constantly changing. So it is unknown and unknowable. But everybody can recognize excellence. And that's why the iPhone, when it first came out, just revolutionized the world and catapulted Apple to billions of dollars in valuation. Now they just keep coming out with, we have a extra camera now. We've got more gigabytes, right? There's not that same sizzle, but they're so big, that infrastructure, they've got so much momentum. And so for a lot of businesses, if you just double up on your quality and double up on your leads, you would get so much further. And it's not sales, it's having a conversation with someone about the problem you help solve. That's what it is. It's not sale. You're not arm wrestling anybody. You're just having a conversation with people about the problem you can help solve. And if they really need it solved and it's really a problem, would you like to try this? Make it easy for them to try. And that's really it. So I just think some of the stuff you brought up is really good, timeless wisdom, whether people listen to it now, whether they listen to it in 5 years, 10 years. I don't think any of that stuff is going to change.
Or when iPhone 37 comes out.
Right. Or on iPhone 37 with a brand new power cord. Great. Yeah. That's so fantastic.
So all my other power cords don't work anymore. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. So now, what do you think is one of the greatest mistakes that you see your clients and other entrepreneurs making?
It is to assume that what got them there will get them to the next level.
Ooh, fire.
So most often the companies that we help are companies that have had a good product market fit and they have good sales.
Right.
But now they haven't come along as the company has expanded and grown and developed. They hadn't started to think about, okay, what happens when there's too many people for me to manage on this team and there's too many people to manage on that team. So they haven't created a lot of clarity around how we do things around here, who we are, what we believe in, where we're going, what your role is. When they're small and you're on the rocket ship, everybody just knows because you're hanging out together.
Right.
But once you hit it, once you've got something, that's when you have to start being a little more clear about what everyone's role is so that you can continue to grow to those next levels without hitting a plateau and having your growth screech to a halt.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. I think, and to make it help people understand, we recently went through the pandemic and a lot of people started having to work remotely. And I think a lot of companies, a lot of people struggled with, how do I do this? Because I'm not there to oversee. And you don't realize how much is conveyed just because, like you say, you're hanging out in your own room. In some ways, that's a good exercise for people to understand. If someone was only to get your instructions via text and maybe some videos, would they be able to perform and duplicate the work while alone in their office on the other side of the world when time zones don't permit you to hop on and answer questions? And I've constantly in my life, not just business, but just my life, been dumbfounded by how many times what I say can be interpreted in ways other than I thought. Yeah. Even that, I just stumbled there. I've been dumbfounded. Yeah.
And let me be even a little harder on some managers.
Sure.
So when we came to the remote world,
right,
you could no longer manage a butt in a seat.
Right.
The easiest thing to manage is I can make sure that Daryl shows up at 8 and doesn't leave before 5.
Right.
I don't know what he's doing all day, but at least he's there.
Yeah.
And when I walk by his desk, I don't see Facebook. I see a spreadsheet. But those companies that were good at managing results, they didn't skip a beat when it went remote. When they had a clear set of expectations for, okay, this role, this is what success looks like for you. If I'm measuring and managing to a result, then I don't care where it happens. I don't care if you do it from the Philippines on the beach. I don't care if you do it from your home in your pajamas. If you can achieve this result, we're good.
Yep. That's how FedEx managed to make the promise anywhere in the world in 24 hours less. They said, hey, guys and girls, when the truck is empty and everything's on the plane, you can go home, but we'll still pay you for an 8-hour day. And everybody just got the stuff off the truck and went home. But when it took an 8-hour day, they just like lollygag. They're like, yo, once your thing is done, go home. We'll pay you for the full day. So I focus on the result.
It's our fault if we don't have a full day of work for you.
Right.
Or if you get it done faster, awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I
then our
recently
customers got the result faster.
I recently used this for a client of mine is trying to set up a phone team here. So I'm in the middle of a strategic partnership with this company. And they said, look, they have 40 locations around the world. They're opening up their first in New York. So it's their first English speaking location. They're all like German and in Germany and Italy and Japan. And they said, Daryl, we need a phone team. So if you could just be boots on ground to supervise, we're going to hire an agency. They're responsible for everything. But if you could just do the pop-ins and some training in that. So they're going to refer all their clients in that for me. And that was the same sort of thing where I said, hey, listen, ladies, if you can book your quota for appointments, you can just go home. We'll pay you for an 8-hour day, because it's about the result at the end of the day, not everything else. Or you can keep working and make more in commissions if you want, versus we need you to sit in this chair forever. And when you talked about activity on that team, there's one girl, she almost does double the number of dials than the other girls. And she books 2 to 3 times the calls. And I'm just,
Imagine that.
I
You
know.
do more and you get more.
I know, it's real. This is real rocket science here. Hopefully everyone's got their calculators out.
Wait, if I make 2 times as many calls, I get 2 times as many appointments. Okay.
Yeah, that's really a hard one to figure out. That's really it. And that's why I think it's important people figure out what it's not just product market fit, it's product market founder fit. You have to have that piece, because otherwise your business becomes a book report that you just don't get done because you just hate the book. And that might be part of it too, I think, at a certain level. So now, sorry.
And I think today, Daryl, people have an expectation that our products and services, again, are going to demonstrably transform them in some way, right? When I lay out my cash or my credit card, it's not because I want your service. It's because I want to be different. I want my business to be different than it is today. If there isn't some transformation, if you're not taking them from somewhere to somewhere, they're going to go find someone else who will.
And there again, there's a weird catch-22 to certain things. Like I remember there was a client, he was in bioengineer, and he had this biology kit that they sold to schools around the world. And I remember I was in the office and he was saying, I'm having a dilemma. If we use this part, the machine will never fail and it'll last for 5-10 years. If I use this part, it'll fail every year and they'll have to get a replacement part on a regular basis. And there's conflict here, because for every sale, like no one else can fix these but us. And a year, a lot of them. So anyways, so like you say, there's the transformation, but there's also the ethics. And it is a catch-22, because you can work yourself out of a business. But I think something people need to understand is that if you don't solve the problem really well, your competitors will. Look at ChatGPT. ChatGPT came out and wiped a bunch of people off the board because it was a more excellent solution. So ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you're selling a product or service, I think excellence is what you really need to strive for. That is your best hedge against an unknown future, right?
Here's what I found. Here's what we found too, Daryl, me and my business partners, is that they're never done. These businesses are never done transforming.
Right.
They always want to grow. And if we are able to achieve a great result for our clients, they will come back to us over and over again and say, now we need to change in this way. Now we need to grow here. Now we need to develop there. Now we need to add this. And if we don't help them achieve that, then they don't come back. Right. And that's as it should be. And even like you said, why excellence is so important. There are no secrets anymore.
Right.
Like we can't mass advertise a bad product.
Right.
Like if I don't get results for my clients, everyone else is going to find that out really fast.
Right. 100%, 1,000%. Those people still exist, but then there's channels like CoffeeZilla and that come up to expose them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, whether we achieve immortality or whether you believe that we have an immortal soul, what would be the trophies that you would put on a mantle? Let's say now I snap my fingers, you are now immortal, or you just believe you have an immortal soul. What do you think the trophies are that it would collect? Would it be the times that you ripped people off and made all this money, scamming all these people? Or would it be the times that you did something truly revolutionary, truly different, truly empowering? You put your best foot forward Like I think that's a really important question. Everyone's saying AI is going to give us immortality. Maybe I'm trying to live to be 300. I don't know about forever, but I don't want to be a brain in a jar. I want like 298 good years and then like quick decline and we're good. But the idea is, again, if you had, forgive me, I actually really like the story. Alan Watts is this great philosopher, and he has this talk he gives called The Dream. And he says, imagine every night you went to sleep, you could dream any dream you wanted to dream. You could live 100 years of life if you wanted, or however many years of life you wanted to live. And so now let's say you do this and you do this for a year, 2 years. Every night you're sleeping, you're dreaming 100 years of a brand new life, a brand new person. And in the beginning, you'd have all the pleasures, all the most enjoyable, right? All the best things in the world. But eventually that would get old and you'd want some excitement and some adventure and some risk and some close calls. And more, your dreams would get more and more like mixed versus just paradise, until one night you would go to sleep and go, tonight, when I dream, I don't want to know that I'm dreaming, and I'm going to wake up and it's going to be okay. And in the infinite possibility of the world, you could dream the life that you're dreaming, that you're living right now. And this again comes back to, would you be grateful for the time that you ripped people off, for the time that you sold snake oil and you didn't do anything of value to the world? So I think what you said is a really great point.
Let me bring that back to the business context.
Yeah.
When you look at what businesses say about themselves today, they too often want to make it look like everything is just up and to the right. Right. Everything is good, right? And if you've ever read Story Brand by Donald Miller, it's not a good business story if you're not overcoming some kind of challenge. Right? So people don't resonate with it. So if you're not helping them overcome some kind of challenge, typically one that you've overcome for yourself, then they can't even hear the story. Right. It doesn't fit into the story arc that we all identify with and pay attention to. It's too boring.
There has to be some sort of David and Goliath. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. So
there's a villain somewhere that we overcome. And if that doesn't happen, well, if what we do is help people solve problems and we pretend there's no problem, that's going to be pretty hard to sell then.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And what do you think are some of the habits that have been most important? We've teased at certain things, but just to really hit the nail on the head, what do you think are some of the most important habits that have helped you in your path to success and you see your most successful clients embody?
So when we develop leaders, because a lot of the time what we're doing with companies is helping them develop a new set of leaders, right? As the business grows, the cap on your growth is leaders, period. So if you're not developing people into leadership, then you will stop growing at some point. And we have to remember that the first person you have to lead is who? Yourself. If you can't lead yourself, then you can't lead anyone else. So the first step is always, and the most important habit is self-leadership. So we, to do this, came up with this, the Flow Planner. And Flow stands for focus, loves, opportunities, and wins. So every day when I open my Flow Planner, I put in my focus. What are my goals? What are my dreams? I write them down every single day. Then my loves, which I know you love to talk about, Daryl, is if I don't then follow up my goals with the things that I'm already grateful for, happy about, then all I'm focused on is the stuff I don't have.
Right.
And you will never get more until you're content with what you got. So focus, loves, then it's the opportunities. Then it's what's on my calendar? What do I have to get done today? What needs to happen? How do I move the dial closer to my goals and in line with the things that I love? Then at the end of the day, I got to chart out my wins. Because as entrepreneurs, as leaders, we're always motivated by how did we win? How can we win again tomorrow? And I'm certainly guilty of this as an entrepreneur too, is I'm so focused on what I don't have and where I want my business to be and where I want my clients to be, that it's really easy for me to get to the end of the day and just check it off and move on.
Right.
But I got to take a second to say, what did I learn? What got better? Who did I improve? Who did I serve? Who did I help? Those are my
Mm.
wins. And if I do this every day, repeatedly, that's what leads to success. Jim Collins said, success is the 20-mile march.
Right.
It's the businesses that go from good to great are the ones that are able to do the same thing day in, day out, over and over again. And the secret is success is a little bit boring.
Right.
Excellence is boring.
Yeah. Because you have to be able to do it until it becomes dull and then keep going until it's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are my two. Perseverance is all the hard work you do when you're already sick and tired of the hard work you were just doing. I just think that's just so important. I think everything you want is on the other side of all those obstacles, and the obstacles are not there to keep you out. They're to keep it an oasis when you get there. It's to prove you really want it. And yeah, success is boring, but you have to do something enough. So when you do something enough times and you repeat it, one, we learn through iterations. It's not 10,000 hours, it's 10,000 iterations, but also patterns emerge. And you need to have patterns emerge so you can optimize the process in order to improve the results and the outcome. Otherwise, you're just hoping, and hope is not a strategy. And so you really have to get clear on that. And now there is pressure because you got to eat every day. Kids got to be fed, bills got to be paid. But once you have roof and ramen, it really just becomes, I think, about serving people better and developing systems. The rule of 10,000, I mentioned the word 10,000. This came up yesterday. One of my first, I don't know why I had a brain fart there, but it's a heuristic. I don't know if it's a heuristic, but the rule of 10,000. How would you get 10,000 leads? How would you follow up with 10,000 prospects? How would you serve 10,000 customers? How would you collect 10,000 payments? How would you give 10,000 refunds? And when you think in that terms of scale, you start building processes and systems now that you can deliver, because the process you need to bake 5 pies is very different than to bake 10,000. And so if you begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey would say, you may not have everything in place when you start, but at least you have a clear path of where you're going. And again, virtue is doing the common uncommonly. I have a martial arts background. He wasn't my favorite fighter, but Roger Gracie is one of the very famous competitor. And part of why is that you always knew how he was going to win. He was going to take you down. He was going to get to top mount and he was going to gi choke you. And that was it. That was it. That was like, if he did anything other than that, you were shocked. But the problem was that he did it to everybody. And so, and this is so phenomenal. Part of why it was so sensational is these are things people learn in their first couple of months. But he's doing it to world champion black belts. You can barely do it to your friend that's completely clueless. And so he was able to do the common uncommonly well. And that doesn't happen with anything other than grit. Yeah, 100%. So where do you think things are going? Geopolitically, the world's, seemingly upside down. AI is on the scene. Apparently aliens are real too, which is, there's been so many reveals in the last couple of years and official reveals. What's going on, Nathan? And where are we going? Where are things going to be in 5, 10 years, 15 years?
Daryl, I have over the last few years really started to try to block out as much of that noise. There was a time where I woke up every day and the first thing I had to do was, this is going way back, but
Right.
read the newspaper. Then it became Google News, right? Because then I can see what all the world is talking about. And I just found that didn't put me in a good mental state. To be so focused on, because with the news industry, if it bleeds, it leads.
Right, right.
And I can get a skewed view of the world by focusing on that. And so I want to focus on the difference that I can make within my sphere of influence. And beyond that, the world is going to sort itself out or not. And I'm not saying I withdraw, but I want to focus on the areas where I can really make a difference. And it's interesting. I will see business leaders do this, where they will say, oh, yeah, sales are down, but the economy is bad and interest rates are up. And they got this litany of excuses.
Yeah.
And I see others who are like, man, interest rates are down, so I got to get out there and hustle more. And so I think we can do ourselves a disservice by getting caught up in all of that noise
Mhm,
and
mhm,
losing focus on the things that we actually can influence
mhm.
for the better.
I love that. I love that because for a lot of people, they're living in obscurity. So even though I had this with a client in the sense of, oh, it's our off season, and it's your off season, but how much of the market have you captured? And it's this might be the best time to try to go out and reach some of those other people. So when it's not off season anymore, your name is everywhere. While it's almost like the ant and the grasshopper. While everybody else was relaxing, you dug in deeper to fight for every inch of ground. And now when the season kicks in, it's your opportunity you've already outworked them. So I think
Yeah.
that's great advice. Nathan, this has been a good,
Go back to your martial arts example. What do you think that guy does in the off season? Bag of Cheetos and land on the beach with a
yeah.
beer?
Yeah. We used to have a quote up on the wall. When you're not training, someone else is to kick your ass. Is that
So I played college soccer, and I'll tell you, we hated the off season because our coach worked us hard. Why? Because champions are made in the off season.
that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Hard work will always beat talent when talent refuses to work hard. You can be the most talented individual, but also hard work alone is not a substitute. What I
Yep.
mean is that you still have to work smart, right? If you have two people that are going to work hard and one group of people, both two people, both want to win a gold medal. One is
Mm.
going to figure it out in a garage with a bunch of books, cassettes, and VHS tapes. And the other one is going to go get 3 previous gold medal world champions to coach them. Both will work hard. Very obviously, we know one will have fewer errors, injuries, and mistakes than the other and achieve the goal sooner. They both have potential. They're both valuable and they're both valuable people, brothers, all that stuff. But one's got a more realistic chance to achieve it in a reasonable time frame. And so hard work is the buy-in. It's not hard work is not the guarantee. If hard work guaranteed results, more people would be rich and famous. It is just the bedrock. Without the hard work, there's no one trick pony. There's no magic room. Nathan, are we going to hang up from this and go, okay, here are the real secrets? Is that going to happen? No.
I don't have a single customer that comes to me, Daryl, that isn't a hard worker.
Right.
That's the price of admission. They come to us because they want to add that working smart to working hard.
Yep. Yeah.
And what they know, I'm not that smart, right? If all these they could do what I do, they could figure out what I've figured out, but it would take them a couple of years, maybe more. It would take them away from what they do. So they know that by hiring me, they can buy the experience I have had of having taken dozens of other businesses through that same challenge that they're facing,
Right.
and they can get there faster.
So if people, yeah, shameless plug time. If people want to find out more, if they want to learn more, should they go to FiveFourtraining.com?
They sure can. They can also find me at nathanschock.com.
Okay. And that's
Or
SCHOCK. Yeah.
got it. Yep. Nathan Schock, NathanSchock.com. And then the most common place to find me is on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
I put out a lot of what I'm learning, the lessons I get from clients. It's like a lot of times I will have startups or young companies come to me and say, hey, can you help?
Hmm.
And I say, you know what, I'll look at it, but we're probably not the right fit for you. But I put out a ton of free stuff on my email list, on LinkedIn, that is, if you follow it, it's going to help you.
Got it. So for people that want to know more, go find him on LinkedIn, NathanSchock, or go check out FiveFour training.com, FiveFourtraining.com. They've got an assessment you can check out as well. Nathan, this has been so informative. There's been so many good nuggets here. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I don't think so, Daryl. This was a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. I think there's one more important thing that they should do if they want to level up their business. And they need to subscribe to the Best Business Podcast with Daryl Urbanski. That's what they should do.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, definitely. And I accept donations of all kinds. So if anyone wants to send money, no, I'm kidding. Nathan, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I know you've got your own following, your own family, your own clients to take care of. Thank you for coming and sharing with me and mine so we can all perform a little bit better.
I love it. Thanks for having me, Daryl.